All right, let's check in with the man who made a huge splash in his UFC debut on Saturday night. He finished Frank Camacho in just 41 seconds. The guitar hero is here. Justin Jaynes, looking like $1 million with the flamingo shirt. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing really good, man. I feel like $1 million right now.
I bet. And it's always nice to talk to a fellow member of the bald contingency.
Hey, that's what it's about.
Yeah, I'm just talking to these fighters. There you go. First of all, we need to put some respect on your name, because I don't know if you noticed watching it back or not, but the broadcast team, they kept calling you Jesse Jaynes throughout the fight. But with that extra 50 G's, I guess you can wipe away the tears with $100 bills. Am I right?
Yeah, John reached out to me personally, messaged and apologized up and down. I don't give a shit about that stuff, man. I mean, mistakes are made. Man, if I got mad at every time I made a mistake at work, man, I'd been fired years ago, dude. It's no big deal. I know he won't do it again. He's a professional. He's one of the best in the game. I respect him. I appreciate even, just talking about him talking about me, even if he did say the wrong name a couple times. He got my name right most of the time. It's not that big of a deal to me, man. I'm over it.
Yeah, John's a friend of mine, so I kind of bust his balls a little bit.
Sure.
So it's all in good fun. I'm not trying to cause problems or anything, but good Lord, man, what a debut! You take the fight on like 48 hours notice. At least that's when people started finding out what was happening. I know I reached out to you on Thursday, but when were you made aware that this was a thing, that you'd get your long-awaited shot at the UFC on super short notice?
Wednesday night I was going out to dinner. I was about to go eat some Thai food, man, and Jason calls me, and usually he texts me, so I kind of got like a little pit in my stomach. Answered the phone. I was really quiet, and he's like, "All right, you better be ready to go this weekend, man. And how's your weight?" And I just happened to train that day, and I was like 166 or 167 pounds after training, after being dehydrated. So I stepped on the scale. I was like 170, 171. And, the next day I just planned out. I was like, all right, I'm going to start my weight cut at noon. I'll probably cut weight for 3 or 4 hours, take a break, come back to it, and get on weight. Well, let alone I didn't know that. I had 5 doctor's appointments to go the next day, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, noon, 1:30, 3:30. So I'm in a panic state right now, like, fuck, how am I going to make weight? But you know what? I got to thank my team for staying on me and getting me to the gym at 8 p.m. And Roman Isbell, one of my coaches, we were there till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he's there sweating with me in the sauna, holding mitts for me, kept me diligent in the process, and kept me honest.
Unbelievable. What a story that is. So with Jason House, when there's good news, like you said, it was a phone call. Normally it's a FaceTime call. It's like a video call of some kind when he has good news. Was it like that, or was this just a straight phone call for you?
No, it's just a straight phone call. Yeah, usually, we talk on the phone periodically, but usually we're just texting back and forth. And, when one of my other managers, a part of Iridium, texted me in the morning, just asking me how my weight was. I believe Jason may have, I can't remember. So I knew, I had a good feeling that it was going to be something good. So very excited. And when I saw his name popped up, my heart sank, because I knew it was either make or break. He was either going to call me and break my heart, or he was going to call me and make all my dreams come true.
This is your first fight in over a year, and you're typically a pretty active guy in there. Was there, I guess, a lot of pent-up frustration in those 41 seconds on top of just wanting to showcase yourself in your UFC debut?
I'm going to tell you, man, Camacho is so awesome, man. He's a stand-up guy, a stand-up fighter. He's a heavy-handed guy. He's just a slugger, and it wasn't any frustration to take him out. But, when the dust settles and everything's said, he's in the way of my dream, man. He's been here. He's had 7 UFC fights. This is my debut. Dana White, the day before, sits all the fighters in a room, and he's saying, you want to be the guy that, that everyone's talking about for the week. Everybody in this room has that opportunity. And I took that to heart. I got out there, I visualized it all. And, I was going to I was going to swing hard until I ran my gas tank to 0, man. I wanted that highlight reel finish. I want people buzzing about the fight. I want people buzzing about me. I want to come in, make a show, and have people talking about it, and that's what Dana talked about the day before, and that was my goal, and that's what I went in there and did.
By the way, how's your head right now? You could see sort of the remnants of the fight on Saturday. How's it feeling?
Oh, it's good, man. It's ain't no thing but a chicken wing, man. It's it's just a little cut, no big deal. I'll staple it up. I'll be back to fight. I'll fight next weekend on Fight Island. Let's go.
You've been fighting for a long time, right? Like, and according to the listings online, you made your amateur debut in 2009, but you came up on the Michigan MMA scene. And I remember talking to a fighter named Jose Johnson last year, another guy from Michigan. He had a highlight reel finish for LFA. And he said that despite like all the amateur fights that were listed, he had like 90 something amateur fights and like 75 of them weren't even listed. Some ridiculous number like that. Was it similar for you coming up in that scene?
Yeah, man. I had my first amateur fight in 2007, June of 2007 for Rough House Productions, ran by a good friend of mine, Phil Davey, and Jerry Higgins, Josh Lawrence, a couple from the OGs back in the day. But understand, it was unsanctioned. You know, they'd put a ring up in a bar, and then you'd sign up. Who wants to fight? I was a good high school wrestler, so a guy named Andy McLaughlin came into a gym that I worked at, and he's trying to get me fired up. And I didn't want to really fight at first. But after he talked me into it, after, his consistency, he gets me to take a fight for this Rough House. It was called Rough House Productions. And I remember it very, very well. It was in a ring. The guy threw a head kick at me, and I moved out of the way. And I remember thinking in my head, like, what the fuck am I doing? And I just ran at him like I was because I played high school football, college football. And I was trying to tackle him like a linebacker on a quarterback. And he sank in a guillotine, and I didn't know what his guillotine was. I didn't know what a choke was. I tapped out, man, and I have an ego, man. If me and you are flipping coins and you flip heads more than I flip tails, I'm pretty upset about it. So I said I was only going to do one fight, but I can't go out 0-1. I took my next fight. I can't remember what the promotion was, but I remember it was in a VFW hall, and I won that fight by decision, and I was hooked. And I end up having 47 amateur fights in Las Vegas, in Michigan, in Ohio, Wisconsin, King of the Cage, XCC, TWC, there's just countless different promotions that I'd fought for throughout, because again, there was no sanctioning. So there was times, I remember one set time, I fought on Saturday, I fought on Thursday, and then I fought on Saturday again, because there was no medical suspensions. I was 18, 19 years old. I thought I was tough, and I just wanted to fight, and I know another time I fought for a promotion in Indiana, and we were allowed knees and stomps to the head on the ground. And then another time I fought in Michigan. It was a 4-man tournament, and I fought 2 full fights in one night. So, I mean, yeah, we used to call that the Wild Wild West days, if you were around during that time. And those were the good old days, honestly. I know I'm talking a lot, but those were the times where people fought because they wanted to see who the toughest mother effer was. All these businessmen nowadays, these 20, 25-year-old kids are coming up. Oh, I want to handpick my opponents. Oh, well, I have an edge on him. Fuck that. We used to show up at the bar and be like, hey, you're tough. You're tough. How much do you weigh? I weigh the same. Let's fight, and let's see who's tougher. And I feel that MMA is getting away from that. Everyone, sees the Conor McGregors talking shit. They can handpick their opponents, man. I feel I'm like kind of the last generation of that kind of fighter that just fought just to see who the baddest guy was.
So after you said you wanted to have one fight early on, and then you lost, and you were like, F this, we're going to keep on going. When did you realize that this is what you wanted to do, and that, someday I want to get to the UFC? Was there a time for you that you remember that you're like, you know what, I love doing this, I'm just going to keep doing it?
There's a picture, and I remember there's a picture on my Facebook, and I remember the thought and the feeling. It's when I won my first amateur fight. I lost the first one, then I won the second one. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I was, like I said, I was 17, or I would just turn, I think I was 17 years old, and my dad had to sign the waiver. And I just remember thinking, man, I want to be in the UFC. And I went home, and I ended up watching, I remember it was the first MMA fight I ever see professionally. It was Ken Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz, pay-per-view. Me and my buddy bought it. And yeah, man, I was hooked. And, when I graduated college, I decided, I can go down a business route with my degree, or I can try to punch people in the face for a living and have some fun. So I moved out to Vegas almost immediately upon my graduation, and I haven't looked back since.
What a crazy story that is. So from your first amateur fight at 17, you're at a bar being like, oh, let's just go fight, to fighting during the middle of a pandemic in an empty UFC Apex. What a crazy ride you've been on.
Man, it's the highs have been high and the lows have been lower than 99% of people can even imagine, man. I've almost quit dozens of times, and thankfully for my family, My mom, my dad, and my coaching staff, Andrew Jacob, Dennis Davis, Roman Isbell, James Lee back in Michigan. He's a UFC vet. Darren Cruikshank was my college roommate. Cody Stamen, we used to train together in Michigan on the amateur scene. I used to ref Cody's fights. Now he moved out to Vegas. Now we're back to training again, just like we used to do at Olivet. Man, Kara Rowe. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Like I said, the list goes on and on. People have kept me going and have sharpened my skills. And I can't even say all their names because there's just so many of them.
I assume that little spark plug, Jared Brooks, is on that list somewhere.
Oh yeah, Jared Brooks, man. We've trained together several times. That guy's a freaking phenomenal fighter, man. He's just a freaking stud. Kara has made his hands so sharp, and his wrestling was already so good. The first time I worked with Jared or ever rolled with Jared, I'm like, all right, I'll take it easy. He only weighs like 110 pounds, soaking wet. Next thing I know, he's double-legging me, throwing my feet up in the air, pressuring right in my face. I'm like, this motherfucker. And, it was a pretty surreal experience to get tossed around by a kid that weighs, what does he weigh, 105, soaking wet? Like, beat my ass the first time we rolled, and I was like, motherfucker, man. But that kid's an awesome guy, too.
Yeah, I hope he gets his shot back up there. I think he absolutely deserves it, no doubt about it. But so you cut the weight, you make the weight, and then Frank was the last fighter to hit the scale, and unfortunately he missed by 2 pounds. How did you react to that on Friday?
Here's the thing, man. Fighting is fucking tough. And, I got a lot of keyboard warriors that, might even be, even say they're my fans. Like, oh, fuck that. For him missing weight, I don't give a fuck about that. Now, if he would have came in at like 160 or 165, all right, now it's like, come on, man, what's going on? But he missed by 2 pounds. Those 2 pounds aren't going to make or break the fight. It's not going to change the outcome of the fight. Frank is a seasoned vet. Something just went wrong, man. I've missed weight before. It happens. Unfortunately, it's the sport. We never want it to happen, but it happens. What am I going to get mad at a guy for something I've done before? It's like I said, we're in a pandemic right now. His training probably wasn't the same as it normally is. I know mine wasn't. I'm trying to. Most people don't even want to train right now because of this coronavirus thing. So hats off to Frank. He got within 2 pounds. I'm not mad at him. I don't give a shit about that shit.
So let's get to Saturday night. You make the walk. You're standing in the hallowed octagon at the UFC Apex. I mean, what did it all feel like? Like, was it like any other fight, or were you like, all right, this is pretty cool, we made it?
I mean, it was like any other fight, man. It's like I've said before, I feel that I've deserved to be here for the last couple of years. I've been in Extreme Couture since 2009. I've trained with the best of the best fighters. I've trained with champions. I know where I belong. I know how tough I am. So when I got in the ring, it was the first time that I can remember that I wasn't nervous. Like I said in my post-fight interview, fighting on these regional promotions, those are nerve-wracking because it doesn't matter who you're fighting. Everybody has a puncher's chance. And, I fought at 170 and 185. I'm not unknockoutable, I guess, if that's even a word. Those fights are nerve-wracking to me. I knew me and Frank were going to get in a phone booth and slug, and I knew one of us was going down. I obviously hoped it was him, of course, but no, man, like when I was in the cage and I just remember looking at Bruce Buffer, and you see in the video where I'm shaking my head like, yes. And that's just me thinking like, I'm supposed to be here. This is my time. I'm supposed to be here. I'm talking to myself. And dude, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. I've been watching Bruce Buffer as an announcer for years and years and years. And he's, this close to my face, screaming at me, pointing at me. And I'm just like, yep, I'm supposed to be here, motherfucker. Let's go. And, when the fight started, we have a brief exchange, and he threw a body kick. And I remember in the back room, me telling my coaches, I'm not backing up for one step. I'm in his face until I gas out or I get knocked out. I'm going to be right in his face. And I'm in pretty good shape. I've been training full time for the last couple of weeks. But he threw that body kick, and I remember I took a half step backwards. And I remember thinking to myself is, motherfucker, don't go backwards. And that's when I just leaped in with that left hook. I felt it land. I felt his body kind of stop for a second. I'm like, oh, he's shocked. And I was like, fuck it, throw it again. Bink, hit him again. He fell. We clashed heads, and the rest is history, man.
Because you just kept landing those hammers. Like you said, you were just going to keep throwing them until somebody dropped or you ran out of gas. Were you like, holy crap, dude, why won't you drop? Because he wasn't dropping. He just kept taking them. And I was wondering how many more of those you were going to land before the ref eventually stepped in and stopped it. And then finally he did.
I I have hit some people as hard as I can in my life, and Frank has one of the best chins. And I mean, he was out on his feet, I think, briefly, but even when the referee separates us, he still tries to throw a punch. Like, fucking hats off to him, man. One of the toughest SOBs I've ever stepped in the cage with. I mean, I hit him with 100% power shots 4, 5, 6 times, and I couldn't. I mean, I think the cage was holding him up at one point, but still, man, hats off to Herb Dean too, protecting the fighter, because you know what, Frank wasn't going to quit. Frank wasn't going to fall down. He was going to stay up, and he was going to try to clinch me and slow me down. Herb Dean came in and I think did the right thing.
You hear the cliche all the time that like everything happens for a reason. And as soon as I found out that you were stepping in to fight Frank, I was like, I'm sure Justin was going to fight anybody at this point, but matching you up with a guy like him, I feel like that was like the best sort of stylistic matchup you could have possibly asked for. You get a tough guy who's willing to stand in there and throw bombs with you. This couldn't have worked out any better for you.
And you could be talking to him the same way right now, because you could be saying to him right now, like, this perfect style matchup, you could be having an interview with him. I just happened to catch him first. I agree, man. It was so much fun and exciting. I had no interest in wrestling. Frank had no interest in wrestling. Like, we came to put on a show, man. When I step in the ring, I'm not looking for my show money and my win money. I'm looking for that performance bonus. The show money and the win money is great, but I want people fucking hitting me up saying like, wow, you fucking put it all out there. What a great fight. That's what I care about, man. I'm finally to a point in my career where I don't have to worry about grinding out these boring wins or, stuff like that. Like, that does happen, and it has happened. Fortunately, I've had mostly finishes, because that's one thing I do. I find ways to finish fights. But, Frank's the guy that we could get in a wrestling exchange and go 15 minutes. But honestly, nobody wants to watch that. They want to watch me get hit in the face. They want to see him get hit in the face. They want to see him get hurt. They want to see me get hurt. And that's what me and Frank did. We went out there and put that show on for everybody.
Herb Dean pulls you off. You finish the fight. Can you put into words what that felt like?
Dude, I wish I could. I genuinely wish I could, man. I've dreamt about it and visualized about it so much. I like broke down. I laid down on the canvas and I looked up at the lights. And I'm just like, this isn't real. This can't be real right now. I almost felt like I was laying in my bed when I opened my eyes and looked around, and I'm like, what is happening right now? Is this, and I wish I could put it in words. And I just can't. It's so emotional for me, and the emotions over these last couple of years have been so high and so low, and I've went through phases of depression, and back to my coaching staff that always believed in me, Andrew Jacob, Dennis Davis, Roman Isbell, all my family from Michigan that always kept me in that for this feeling, man. It's like, I don't think I'll ever, no matter what I do the rest of my career, I don't think I'll ever replace that feeling with anything better.
So you wouldn't change a thing. The way this all happened, I mean, obviously, if you could get in earlier, great, but, you wouldn't change a thing right now. The story writes itself.
If I could get in earlier, I wouldn't change a fucking thing. I talked to my boss, my friend Eric Nixick, yesterday, and I always say, believe in the process, man. I've been believing in the process for a long, long time. And, I see guys, they train for a couple of years, they get in the UFC, they have a run, they're done. And I'm still here training, fighting these regional shows. And I think the hardest part for me is it's not like I'm a boring fighter. It's not like I'm going in there and winning decision after decision after decision. I have 13 first round finishes out of 16 wins. 16 wins. I have 14 finishes, and 12 of them are in the first round, and the other finishes in the second round. Like, what am I doing wrong? And, I come home and I think and I reflect. It's like, I just never knew what I was doing wrong. But it wasn't that I was doing something wrong. I just wasn't in the right place at the right time. I wasn't in the right, maybe I wasn't on weight at this time, or, it just didn't. And now the stars aligned. I got a dream matchup against a fucking killer, and him and I went out there and did what we do.
How did you celebrate the win? Did you do anything exciting?
No, nothing too exciting. I went and got my son. He was at his friend's house. Him and I went out for dinner. Him and me and some friends went out for dinner. Then I went to Stoney's. I had a couple beers, and I think by 12 o'clock, I was done, man. I was tired. I didn't have much to do. No, that's not true. And that was it. I had a couple beers and went to sleep.
How old's your son?
He's 11.
He's 11. So what a Father's Day present for him, right?
And what a Father's Day present indeed,
Good for
man.
you.
It's like, that's another thing. Like, I live out here by myself. I moved out here by myself. He lives in Michigan. He comes out and stays with me through the summers. But man, it's like the sacrifice that I feel. I'm not, and all fighters have a sacrifice, you know, but I think to each and every one that, you know, everyone thinks that theirs is more or not, but man, I left my family for this dream. You know, I've turned down countless job opportunities, you know, career opportunities for this dream. And Saturday night, it all unfolded and it all worked out exactly how I dreamt about it for years and years and years.
What was the first thing he said to you when you picked him up?
You know, he hides his emotion towards me. He doesn't get excited in front of me. If I don't know why. I was like, hey, what'd you think of that? You know, he's like, cool. And I was like, oh, that's it? He's like, well, there's like 5 O's in cool. And I'm just like, what? But my buddy's mom, or his buddy's mom, was videotaping him watching the fight, and he jumped up in the air screaming, that's my dad, and like, yeah, woo. But as soon as I walk in the room, I'm just his dad again, you know. So
cool as a cucumber. He's just like his dad. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What did that video mean to you when you actually got to see it?
I'm sorry?
When you saw the video of him reacting to it, that must have felt like the greatest thing in the world.
Oh man, I start crying, man, immediately, like, because this is my biggest thing. You know, I don't ever plan on being a millionaire. You know, my goals in this sport are to have highlight fights, whether I'm getting knocked out, whether my opponents get knocked out. I want to travel the world, and I want my son to be proud of his dad. And that's my number one goal, is I want my son to be proud, because, you know, I have been away for some time now. You know, I'm missing a lot of his childhood. And when he's older, when he grows up, you know, I don't want him to resent me for it. I want him to understand why I did it. I want him to understand all the perseverance I had to go through. And I want him to be proud. You know, when I go home, when I go to Michigan and he grows up, I want him to be like, yeah, that was my dad. You know, he wasn't around during the school year. We got our summers together, not in Michigan relatively often. I probably go every other month or every third month to stay for a week to spend time with him. So it's not that I'm not in his life by any means. It's not what I'm trying to say. But I do live in Las Vegas and he lives in Michigan. And my number one goal is just, you know, at the end of the day, I just want him proud of me. And when I saw that video, man, I started breaking down, because no matter, I'm starting to break down right now, man, because it was like super emotional for me. And see, you know, all the hard work and, you know, the dedication and stuff finally paid off, man. And I know my son's proud, whether he says it or not. I know he is after seeing his reaction.
Yeah, as a dad myself, I can completely understand what you're talking about right now. And an incredible moment for you to share with him and get to see that video. And you know how it is. It's a tough transition for this, but you get a win and you get a bonus. You get to savor the flavor for like 11 seconds before people want to know what's next for you. And obviously there's Fight Island. Looks like most of those cards are filled up, but the UFC has some events coming up in August in Las Vegas, right in your backyard. I assume you're trying to get on one of those cards and make up for some lost time, right?
Oh, hell yeah, man. I'm looking to make a quick turn on this cutting. I'm going to cut the stitches. I'll probably pull them out myself next week. I'm going to go to Michigan. I need to see my family. I need to see my mom. I need to see my dad. I need to see the people that are most important to me. I'm probably going to be there for 10 days. Then I'm right back to the grind, man. I got a hit list, you know. Drakkar Klose, I think that would be a great fight. I'd love to fight Drakkar. We have history from 2007. Austin Hubbard. Man, that'd be he's coming off a win. I'm coming off a win on the same show. I'd like to fight him probably the most. He beat my friend Max, and you know, I would like to redeem Max's loss. You know, years ago, me and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres. I don't know. Caceres. Man, I'd love to, if me and my manager decide to go down to 145, because it is in the talk. I'm only like 5'3", so you know, going down a weight class might be an option. You know, I'd love to fight Alex Caceres. He's a great name. He's a great fighter. He has a lot of, you know, he's coming off a 2-win streak. So, you know, if I decide to go down to 145, I'd love to get a crack at him. True veteran of the sport. You know, Austin Hubbard, again, coming off a win over a very tough Max. You know, a friend of mine, training partner. Love to get a crack at him as well. So those are the 3 names on my list right now. Yeah, man, and hopefully by August, I'd like to be back in there. Shit, I'll be late July, man. Well, no, maybe not late July, but August for sure. because I'm going to be in Michigan until mid-July, and I want to get back and get my weight back under control and enjoy my time out there and not have to stress about training and stuff like that.
There you go. What kind of history with Drakkar? Is this like an old wrestling rivalry?
Yes. So Drakkar is from South Haven. I am from Richmond, Michigan. He's from South Haven, Michigan. And in 2007, I was ranked the number 2 guy in the state. He was ranked number 1. And by shitty bracketing, we got put on the same bracket or the same side of the bracket in the state finals. I believe he was 55-0 and I was 58-0. And if I'm not mistaken, he beat me by a stalling point. So I don't know if you know wrestling or how points work, but he beat me by a stalling point. And, I'd love to punch him in the face for it. And let me say this, Drakkar is a great guy, man. I think he is an awesome fighter. He's exciting. He's a great wrestler. I wish I had one thing this bad to say about the guy. Every time I see him, I tell him, I'm like, oh, you motherfucker. Like, you beat me in high school. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, but it's a cool story, I think. And I think it'd be cool to get in there, 2 Michigan guys, locking horns after, 13 years ago, we competed against each other. Now 13 years later, we're going to compete. We compete again at that time in our lives. That was the biggest stage there was, the state championship in wrestling. And now the UFC is the biggest stage in anyone's life in any competitive sport. So it's not a hard feelings thing. Like I said, I talked to Drakkar. We talk on Instagram. When he comes to Vegas, we're going to hang out and drink some beer. When I go to Phoenix, we're going to hang out, drink some beer. If we both end up in Michigan, we're going to hang out, drink some beer. But that doesn't mean I don't want to punch him in the face still.
Oh, man. See, that story just writes itself. I'm a storyline guy, and this one checks off all the boxes for me. But, Justin, congratulations, man. The story from 2007 to get to the UFC is just absolutely incredible. I'm glad you got to share that moment with your son and have that video to keep with you forever. And just an incredible performance. Enjoy the 50 Gs, and can't wait to see what's next for you, man.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you so much for reaching out. And anytime you need anything, let me know.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Talk to you later.